Jake took a bullet saving Police Commissioner Helen Wade's life. Overnight, the city raised $347,000 for the struggling single dad and hero. But when Jake discovered the commissioner's father had stolen his $6 million inheritance years ago, he realized the shocking truth. Her gratitude was really guilt, and nothing was what it seemed. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Jake Morrison wiped down the counter of his small coffee shop for the third time. His hands shook slightly. Not from exhaustion, though he was tired. He had been awake since 4 in the morning. The shaking came from fear. The rent was due tomorrow. $3,000. Jake had only $800 in his bank account. His landlord had already warned him twice. One more late payment and he would lose the shop. And if he lost the shop, how would he feed his daughter Lily? Lily was 5 years old. She had her mother's blonde hair and bright blue eyes. Her mother, Rebecca, had died 3 years ago in a car accident. Since then, it had been just Jake and Lily against the world. He worked 18 hours a day to keep their small apartment and the coffee shop running. But it was never enough. The bell above the door chimed. Jake looked up with his best customer service smile. But the smile died on his face when he saw who walked in. 3 men in expensive suits. The one in front was Vincent Cross, a corrupt city official who had been trying to buy Jake's coffee shop for 6 months. The building was in a prime location downtown. Vincent wanted to tear it down and build luxury condos. "Good evening, Mr. Morrison," Vincent said with a cold smile. "I hope you've reconsidered my offer." "I told you no," Jake said firmly. "This shop belonged to my father. I'm not selling it." Vincent's smile disappeared. "Your father is dead. Your wife is dead. You're drowning in debt. Be smart, Jake. Take my offer. $50,000. That's generous." "The building is worth $300,000, Jake replied. "Your offer is an insult." Vincent leaned across the counter. His breath smelled like cigars and whiskey. "You have until tomorrow to pay your rent. You won't make it. Then the bank will foreclose. And I'll buy it for even less than $50,000. So take my offer now or lose everything." "Get out of my shop," Jake said quietly. Vincent laughed. "Tough guy. Let's see how tough you are when you're homeless with a hungry kid." He turned to leave, then stopped. "Oh, and Jake? Stop serving coffee to Police Commissioner Helen Wade. She comes here every morning, right? I'd hate for something bad to happen to your special customer." The threat hung in the air like poison. Vincent and his men left, laughing. Jake's hands gripped the counter until his knuckles turned white. He wanted to scream, to break something. But he couldn't. Lily was upstairs in their small apartment above the shop, doing her homework. She couldn't see him like this. Couldn't know how scared he was. He took a deep breath and went upstairs. Lily sat at the kitchen table, coloring a picture of a house. A happy family stood in front of the house. A mom, a dad, and a little girl. "Daddy." Lily jumped up and hugged him. "Look what I drew. It's us, and Mommy came back from heaven." Jake's heart broke into a million pieces. He knelt down and hugged his daughter tight. "It's beautiful, baby. Mommy would love it." "Are we going to lose the coffee shop, Daddy?" Lily asked suddenly. Her blue eyes were too knowing for a 5-year-old. "What? No, sweetie. Where did you hear that?" "I heard you talking on the phone. You sounded sad." Jake forced a smile. "Everything is going to be fine. I promise. Now let's have dinner. I made your favorite spaghetti." But Jake's promise felt hollow. He had no idea how he would pay the rent tomorrow. He had already borrowed from friends. Already sold everything valuable. There was nothing left. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Jake sat at the window and stared at the city lights. He thought about his father, who had built this coffee shop with his own hands. He thought about Rebecca, who had loved this place and dreamed of expanding it someday. He thought about all the regular customers who came here not just for coffee, but for community. And he thought about Vincent Cross's threat against Commissioner Wade. Helen Wade was one of Jake's first customers. She had been coming to the shop for 5 years, every morning at 7. She was the city's police commissioner, a tough woman who had cleaned up corruption in the police department. She had made enemies, powerful enemies, and Vincent Cross was one of them. Jake had heard rumors. Vincent was involved in drug trafficking, illegal gambling, and bribery. Commissioner Wade had been investigating him for months. If something happened to her, Vincent would be the prime suspect. But if Vincent could make it look like an accident or a random crime, he might get away with it. Jake's phone buzzed. A text from his landlord: "Rent due by noon tomorrow or I start eviction." "Sorry, Jake." Jake put his head in his hands. He had failed. Failed his father. Failed Rebecca. Failed Lily. Tomorrow they would lose everything. The next morning, Jake opened the shop at 6 as usual. He had not slept all night. His eyes were red and his body felt like lead. But he made fresh coffee, baked muffins, and put on his apron. If this was his last day in the shop, he would do it right. At exactly 7 o'clock, Commissioner Helen Wade walked in. She was a tall woman in her 50s with short gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She wore her police uniform with pride. "Good morning, Jake," she said warmly. "The usual, please." "Good morning, Commissioner." Jake made her regular order, a large black coffee and a blueberry muffin. His hands moved automatically, but his mind was elsewhere. Helen noticed immediately. "Jake, are you all right? You look terrible." "I'm fine," Jake lied. "Just tired." Helen studied him with those sharp eyes. "Is it the shop? I heard Vincent Cross has been harassing you." Jake's head snapped up. "How did you know?" "I'm the police commissioner. I know everything that happens in my city." Helen's expression hardened. "Vincent Cross is a criminal. I'm building a case against him. Soon I'll have enough evidence to arrest him and his entire network." "He threatened you," Jake said quietly. "Yesterday he came here and threatened that something bad might happen to you." Helen's jaw tightened. "Thank you for telling me. I'll be careful." She paused. "Jake, if you need help with the shop, I can." "I don't take charity," Jake interrupted gently. "But thank you." Helen nodded with respect. She took her coffee and muffin to her favorite table by the window. She opened her briefcase and started working on documents. The morning rush began. Jake served customers on autopilot. His mind kept calculating and recalculating. $800. 3,000 needed. It was impossible. At 8:30 the door burst open. Jake looked up, expecting a customer. Instead he saw a man in a black hoodie. The man's hand was in his pocket. His eyes were wild and dilated. Drugs, Jake thought immediately. The man looked around frantically, then his eyes locked on Commissioner Wade. He pulled out a gun. "Nobody move," the man screamed. Customers started screaming. Some dove under tables. Others ran for the back exit. But Commissioner Wade stayed perfectly still, her hand moving slowly toward her own weapon. "You." The gunman pointed at Helen. "You destroyed my life. You arrested my brother. You shut down our business." Jake recognized him then. This was Danny Cross, Vincent's younger brother. Vincent had sent him. This was the threat Vincent had made yesterday. "Danny, put the gun down," Helen said calmly. "This isn't the way." "Shut up." Danny's hand shook. Sweat poured down his face. "You think you're so righteous? You think you're cleaning up the city? You're just destroying families." Helen's hand was almost on her gun. But Jake saw what she didn't see. Danny's finger was tightening on the trigger. He was going to shoot. He was too high, too unstable to hesitate. Time slowed down. Jake thought about Lily upstairs, probably still sleeping. He thought about the shop his father built. He thought about Rebecca and how she always said everyone deserved a second chance at life. But mostly Jake thought about doing the right thing. Jake jumped. He launched himself across the counter, throwing his body between Danny and Commissioner Wade. The gun fired. The sound was deafening in the small shop. Fire exploded in Jake's shoulder. He crashed into Helen, knocking her to the ground. Danny stood frozen, shocked by what he had done. Then he ran. Helen was on her feet instantly. She called for backup on her radio. Then she knelt beside Jake, pressing her hands against his wound. "Jake, stay with me. Why did you do that?" Jake tried to smile. Blood soaked his shirt. "Someone had to protect the good guys." "Ambulance is coming," Helen shouted. "Hang on, Jake. Think about Lily. Stay awake." "Lily," Jake whispered. His vision was blurring. "Tell her. I love her. Tell her I'm sorry." "You'll tell her yourself," Helen insisted. Tears ran down her tough face. "You're not dying today." Police sirens wailed outside. Officers rushed in. Paramedics loaded Jake onto a stretcher. The last thing Jake saw before darkness took him was Helen's face, covered in his blood, promising him something he couldn't quite hear. Jake woke up slowly. His shoulder felt like it was on fire. Machines beeped around him. Tubes were in his arms. He was in a hospital. Sunlight streamed through the window. Morning. How long had he been unconscious? "Daddy?" Lily's voice. Jake turned his head. Lily sat in a chair next to his bed, holding his hand. Behind her stood Commissioner Wade, still in her uniform, looking like she hadn't slept at all. "Lily," Jake croaked. His throat was dry. "Baby, I'm okay." Lily climbed carefully onto the bed and hugged him gently. The lady said you're a hero. You saved her life. Jake looked at Helen over Lily's head. Helen's eyes were red but determined. The bullet went through your shoulder, Helen explained. Clean through. No permanent damage. You'll recover fully. Danny Cross. Jake asked. Arrested. He's in custody singing like a bird. He confessed that Vincent sent him. He said Vincent threatened to hurt Danny's kids if he didn't kill me. Helen's expression was grim. We arrested Vincent this morning. It's over. He's going to prison for a very long time. Good, Jake whispered. He held Lily close, breathing in her strawberry shampoo smell. He was alive. His daughter was safe. Nothing else mattered. Jake, there's something else, Helen said. She pulled out an envelope. While you were in surgery, something incredible happened. The story of what you did spread through the city. How you took a bullet for me. How you're a single father struggling to keep his coffee shop. Jake felt dread in his stomach. He didn't want pity. Didn't want charity. People started coming to the hospital, Helen continued. Dozens, then hundreds. Regular citizens. Business owners. People whose lives I've helped over the years. They all wanted to help the man who saved me. Helen opened the envelope. Inside were checks. Dozens of checks. Jake, they raised money for you. In one morning, people donated over $300,000. Jake stared at the checks. His mind couldn't process it. $347,000 to be exact, Helen said with a smile. You can pay your rent. Keep your shop. Expand it if you want. Send Lily to the best schools. This is what you earned, Jake. Not charity. You saved a life. The city is repaying that debt. Jake started crying. Big, ugly sobs that shook his whole body. Lily hugged him tighter, not understanding but knowing her daddy needed her. There's more, Helen said gently. The mayor wants to give you the Medal of Valor. The city council wants to name a day after you. And her voice cracked. I owe you my life. Whatever you need for the rest of your life, you call me. Understood. Jake couldn't speak. He just nodded. A doctor came in to check Jake's vitals. You need rest, the doctor said. No more excitement today. Helen stood to leave. I'll let you rest. But Jake? Thank you. You gave my grandchildren the gift of having me around longer. I'll never forget that. After Helen left, Jake held Lily and stared at the envelope of checks. His life had changed completely in 24 hours. Yesterday he was about to lose everything. Today he had more than enough to secure his and Lily's future. But as the pain medication made him drowsy, one thought kept nagging at Jake's mind. Something felt wrong. The amount was too perfect. The timing too convenient. How had hundreds of people mobilized so quickly? How had they raised such a specific large amount in just a few hours? Jake pushed the thought away. He was being paranoid. He was safe. Lily was safe. That was all that mattered. He fell asleep with his daughter in his arms, unaware that the real shock was yet to come. Jake was released from the hospital 3 days later. His shoulder was bandaged and in a sling, but the doctor said he would heal perfectly. Commissioner Wade arranged for a police car to drive Jake and Lily home. When they arrived at the coffee shop, Jake stopped in shock. The shop's windows had been cleaned. The old sign had been replaced with a beautiful new one. Through the window he could see new furniture, a new espresso machine and fresh paint on the walls. What? Jake stammered. A man stepped out of the shop. He was in his 60s, wearing an expensive suit. Mr. Morrison? I'm Gerald Chin, contractor. Commissioner Wade hired me to renovate your shop while you recovered. Everything is paid for. You open whenever you're ready. Jake walked inside like he was in a dream. The shop looked amazing. Better than it ever had. Even better than when his father first built it. Lily ran around excitedly. Daddy? It's so pretty. Can I pick out new curtains? Of course, baby, Jake said automatically. But his mind was reeling. This renovation must have cost $50,000 at least. Why would Helen spend so much? Over the next week, Jake reopened the shop. Customers flooded in, eager to meet the hero who saved the commissioner. Business was better than ever. Jake hired 2 employees to help with the rush. One morning, an elderly woman came in. She looked familiar, but Jake couldn't place her. You don't remember me, the woman said kindly. I came to your father's funeral 3 years ago. I'm Margaret Morrison. Your father's cousin. Jake's mind cleared. Yes, he remembered her vaguely. Aunt Margaret. I'm sorry it's been so long. I heard what you did, Margaret said. How brave you were. I wanted to come thank you personally for being such a good man. Your father would be so proud. They talked for an hour. Margaret told stories about Jake's father that Jake had never heard. About his father's kindness, his integrity, his secret charity work helping struggling families. As Margaret was leaving, she paused. Jake, did anyone ever tell you about your father's property? What property? The commercial building downtown. The one your father bought as an investment 30 years ago. He left it to you in his will. Jake frowned. I never heard anything about that. Just the coffee shop. Margaret looked concerned. That's strange. The building is worth at least $5 million. Your father's lawyer should have told you. His name was Richard Wade. He's retired now, but... Jake's blood ran cold. Wade? As in Commissioner Helen Wade? Yes, Richard is her father. He handled all your father's legal affairs. Margaret saw Jake's expression change. Is something wrong? No, Jake lied. Thank you for telling me. After Margaret left, Jake's mind raced. Commissioner Wade's father was his father's lawyer. His father had a valuable building that Jake never knew about. Was there a connection? Jake closed the shop early. He went to the city records office and requested his father's will. What he found made his hands shake. His father's will clearly stated that Jake inherited both the coffee shop and a commercial building worth millions. But the will had been modified. The commercial building had been transferred to Richard Wade 1 year before Jake's father died. The signature looked like his father's, but something about it seemed wrong. Jake took photos of everything. Then he went to see a lawyer friend, Tom Chin, who had helped him with Rebecca's estate. Tom looked at the documents and frowned. Jake, this doesn't look right. The signature on the transfer document looks forged. And the timing is suspicious. Your father transferred a $5 million property for free? That makes no sense. What are you saying? Jake asked, though he already knew. I think Richard Wade forged your father's signature and stole your inheritance. And if that's true... Tom looked at Jake seriously. Commissioner Helen Wade might know about it. Jake felt sick. Helen had been so kind to him. She had organized the fundraising. She had renovated his shop. She had given him money and support. But what if it was all guilt? What if her father had stolen millions from Jake, and Helen was trying to make amends without admitting the truth? Or worse, what if the shooting was planned? The thought hit Jake like another bullet. Vincent Cross had been Helen's enemy. Danny Cross had tried to kill her. But what if Helen had known it was coming? What if she had let it happen, knowing Jake would jump in front of the bullet? Knowing it would create a perfect hero story? Knowing she could pay off her father's debt with public donations and appear generous while hiding the truth? No, Jake said aloud. That's crazy. She wouldn't. But doubt had taken root. And Jake knew he had to find out the truth, no matter what it cost him. For the next 2 weeks, Jake investigated. He hired Tom to look into the property transfer. He talked to people who knew his father. He reviewed old financial records. Every piece of evidence pointed to the same conclusion. Richard Wade had forged documents and stolen Jake's inheritance. The commercial building had been sold 3 years ago for $6 million. Richard Wade had kept all the money. But did Helen know? Jake struggled with this question every day. Part of him wanted to believe Helen was innocent. She had been nothing but kind to him. She had genuine tears when he was shot. She seemed to truly care about him and Lily. But another part of Jake remembered something odd. The morning of the shooting, Helen had been unusually calm. Even when Danny pulled the gun, she hadn't seemed surprised. Just ready. Like she had been expecting it. And there was the money. $347,000 raised in hours. Jake had researched similar fundraisers. They usually took days or weeks to raise that much money. How had this happened so fast? Unless it was planned in advance. Jake decided to confront Helen directly. He called her office and requested a private meeting. Helen met him at the coffee shop after closing time. She looked tired but happy to see him. Jake, your shoulder is healing well? It's fine, Jake said. He didn't sit down. He stood across the counter from her like they were strangers. Commissioner, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest with me. Helen's expression changed. The warmth faded. She became the police commissioner, sharp and guarded. What is it? Did you know your father stole my inheritance? Silence. Helen's face went pale. She looked at Jake with something like fear in her eyes. How did you find out? She whispered. So it's true. Jake's voice was flat. Your father forged my father's signature and stole a building worth millions. And you knew. Jake, I can explain. Did you know about the shooting? Jake interrupted. His voice was rising. Did you know Vincent was going to send Danny? Did you let it happen? Of course not. Helen looked genuinely shocked. Jake, you can't possibly think? Then explain. Jake shouted. Explain why you never told me about my inheritance. Explain why you've been so generous. Explain how hundreds of people raised $300,000 in a few hours. It doesn't make sense unless you planned it. Helen sat down heavily. She looked 10 years older suddenly. You're right. I owe you the truth. She took a deep breath. 3 months ago, my father confessed to me on his deathbed. He had pancreatic cancer. He told me what he did to your father. How he forged the documents and stole your inheritance. Jake's fists clenched. What? Why would he do that? Gambling debts, Helen said quietly. My father had a secret gambling addiction. He owed dangerous people millions of dollars. He saw your father's property as an opportunity. He was desperate. And you? Jake asked coldly. What did you do when you found out? I was horrified, Helen said. Tears ran down her face. I wanted to tell you immediately. But my father begged me not to. He said it would destroy our family's reputation. Destroy my career. He died 2 weeks later and I... You did nothing, Jake finished. I was a coward, Helen admitted. But Jake, I was planning to make it right. I had my own financial advisors calculating how much your inheritance would be worth now with interest. Around $6 million. I was going to give it to you anonymously, through a charity foundation. When? Jake demanded. When were you going to do this? Next month. I swear. I have documents. I can show you. And the shooting? Jake interrupted again. Did you know? Helen looked him straight in the eye. No. I had no idea Vincent would send his brother. That was a complete surprise. And when you jumped in front of that bullet? Her voice cracked. I thought you were going to die. I thought I had gotten you killed. And then I thought about how I had already stolen from you and now I had gotten you shot and I wanted to die from guilt. But you used it, Jake said. You used the shooting to pay off your debt to me. The fundraiser, the renovations, the publicity. It was all to ease your guilt without admitting what your father did. Yes, Helen whispered. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Jake. Jake stared at the woman he had saved. The woman he had trusted. He felt betrayed and angry. But he also felt something else. Understanding. Helen had been in an impossible situation. She had loved her father and discovered he was a thief. She had wanted to protect her family and do the right thing. She had made mistakes, but she had also tried to make things right in her own way. What happens now? Helen asked quietly. Are you going to sue me? Report me? I'll understand if you do. I deserve it. Jake was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his father. About what kind of man his father had been. Honest. Kind. Forgiving. I want my full inheritance, Jake said finally. $6 million plus interest for 3 years. I want it in writing, legally transferred to me. Done, Helen said immediately. I'll have my lawyers draw up the papers tomorrow. And I want you to step down as police commissioner. Helen flinched like she'd been slapped. Jake. You covered up a crime, Jake said firmly. Even if it was your father's crime. You knew about it and did nothing. That's corruption. You're supposed to be better than that. Helen nodded slowly. Fresh tears ran down her face. You're right. I'll submit my resignation tomorrow. But, Jake continued, I want you to recommend your deputy commissioner to replace you. The honest one who doesn't take bribes and actually cares about people. And I want you to use your remaining influence to make sure Vincent Cross and everyone in his network goes to prison for a very long time. I will, Helen promised. Is there anything else? Yes, Jake said. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. You made mistakes, but you also built a good police department. You helped a lot of people. Don't let your father's sins define you. Learn from this and be better. Helen looked at Jake with something like awe. How are you so wise? So forgiving? I'm not forgiving you, Jake said honestly. I'm just choosing not to let anger destroy me. My daughter deserves a father who isn't consumed by revenge. And my father would want me to be better than the people who wronged him. Helen stood up. She offered her hand. Thank you, Jake, for saving my life. And for saving my soul. Jake shook her hand. Goodbye, Commissioner. 6 months passed. Helen Wade resigned as police commissioner, citing health reasons. Her deputy, Maria Santos, took over and proved to be even better at the job. Vincent Cross and his entire network were convicted and sentenced to decades in prison. Danny Cross got a lighter sentence for cooperating and entered a rehabilitation program. Jake received his full inheritance, $6 million plus interest. He invested most of it wisely. He expanded the coffee shop into a small chain, creating jobs. He donated $1 million to create a legal aid fund helping families who had been victims of fraud. And he set up a trust fund for Lily that would pay for her education through college and beyond. Jake's life transformed completely. But he made sure not to spoil Lily. She still did chores. Still said please and thank you. Still understood that money didn't make someone a good person. One Saturday morning, Jake was working at the original coffee shop when Helen walked in. She looked different. Older without the weight of the badge but somehow lighter. Happier. "Hello, Jake," she said quietly. "May I have a coffee?" Jake hesitated, then nodded. "The usual?" "Yes, please." Jake made her black coffee and a blueberry muffin. Helen sat at her old table by the window. Jake brought the order over and sat down across from her. "How are you?" Helen asked. "Good," Jake said. "Really good, actually. The shops are doing well. Lily started first grade. She's thriving." "I'm glad," Helen said sincerely. "And I wanted to tell you, I've been volunteering. Teaching ethics and accountability to new police recruits. Trying to make sure the next generation doesn't make my mistakes." "That's good," Jake said. He meant it. "I also wanted to give you this." Helen handed him an envelope. "It's a letter. I wrote down everything that happened with my father. The fraud, the cover-up, all of it. It's signed and notarized. If you ever need proof for any reason, you have it." Jake took the envelope. "Thank you. And I wanted to say, I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Not just for what my father did but for my own cowardice. You deserved the truth from the beginning. Instead, you had to dig for it yourself." Jake looked at the woman across from him. She had made terrible mistakes. But she was trying to be better. That counted for something. "I forgive you," Jake said. And he meant it. Helen's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. That means more than you know." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Lily ran down from the apartment upstairs. "Daddy, can we go to the park?" She stopped when she saw Helen. "Oh, hi, Miss Helen." "Hello, Lily," Helen said with a gentle smile. "You've grown so tall." "I'm in first grade now," Lily announced proudly. "And Daddy says I'm the smartest kid in my class." "I believe it," Helen said. Lily looked between her father and Helen. "Daddy, is Miss Helen your friend?" Jake thought about that question. 6 months ago his answer would have been no. But now, "Yes," Jake said. "She's my friend." Helen smiled through her tears. "And you're mine, Jake. For as long as you'll have me." After Helen left, Lily tugged on Jake's shirt. "Daddy, why was Miss Helen crying?" "Because she's grateful," Jake explained. "Sometimes people cry when they're happy." "Are you happy, Daddy?" Lily asked. Jake picked up his daughter and hugged her tight. He looked around his beautiful coffee shop. He thought about the money in the bank that would secure Lily's future. He thought about his father's legacy being honored. He thought about choosing forgiveness over revenge. "Yes, baby," Jake said. "I'm very happy." That night, after Lily was asleep, Jake sat by the window and looked at the city lights. He touched the scar on his shoulder. It had healed completely, just a small mark now. That bullet had changed everything. Not just because it made him a hero or brought him money, but because it had tested his character. It had forced him to choose between revenge and forgiveness, between bitterness and grace. Jake had chosen grace. And in doing so he had found peace. The shocking truth of what Helen had hidden could have destroyed him, could have filled him with rage and hate. But Jake had learned something important. The truth only has as much power as you give it. You can let it poison you or you can use it to become stronger and wiser. Jake chose wisdom. He chose to honor his father's memory by being better than those who wronged him. He chose to raise Lily in a home filled with love, not anger. And that choice made all the difference. As Jake prepared for bed, he whispered a prayer of gratitude. Gratitude for surviving. Gratitude for discovering the truth. Gratitude for the strength to forgive. Gratitude for the opportunity to turn tragedy into triumph. The bullet that almost killed him had actually saved him in ways he never expected. It had brought him justice, wealth, and wisdom. But most importantly, it had shown him the kind of man he wanted to be. Not a victim. Not a revenge seeker. But a father, a businessman, and a man of integrity who chose forgiveness over bitterness every single day. Jake Morrison fell asleep that night with a smile on his face. His story had started with conflict and revenge, but it ended with redemption and peace. And that was the best ending of all.